And so here we are on part 3 of the 2 gardens and the tree of life. We're going to be focusing primarily on the tree of life in this video. So here we see Enil and Eniki tending their garden, tending the tree. The pine cones that they seem to be using to tend this tree is really the pineal gland and the secretions thereof that they are manipulating, working with to do their genetic manipulation. Higher technology of genetic manipulation does not require somebody, taking a microscope and taking little samples of DNA out of and putting and doing all what they do now. This whole procedure is just bypassed. They do have to have a genetic hosts, but they don't have to slice and dice them to do what they need to do. And they operate it primarily, well, not entirely, but a large part of it is through the secretions of the pineal gland. Anyway, I don't know what those little buckets are for. I haven't a clue. But that the pine cones, the pineal glands are certainly involved. And this is true of more divine genetic manipulation, because you can say, well, really, what's the difference? Both these beings are manipulating things. The difference is that we as divine human beings come through the full metatronic spectrum. We were not genetically created. We were a product of this infusion of angelic full light spectrum. But as we started messing things up of our own free will, we needed a little help. And there were phases when that help was available to us to be able to create a more genetic solvency within our being to help sustain that metatronic frequency. But after a point, we were no longer given that availability because we had passed the point of no return, at least no return in the sense of that the higher ultra beings and the creator lords could no longer help us. We were on our own path at that point. We'd separated from the divine inscription entirely, the light of inscription, the divine inscription. So at that point, they had to wait for us to return to them, so to speak, before they could help us out again, to return to that frequency, which we're beginning to do. We're really in that phase now of returning into that frequency. So that made us totally vulnerable and open to all other manner of genetic manipulation from beings that didn't give a hoot if we were aligned to their frequency or not. Well, actually, we were. We fell into their frequency. We literally fell into the lion's den. I don't know, I'm going to call it a lion's den, the serpent's den, perhaps. And then, we were one big free-for-all. They could do what they wanted. But as long as we maintained, we'd not separated from the divine light inscription, that was not possible. And so, on my website blog, Bitcoin and Metatronic Generative Field, I have a video called The Bank of St Germain. Didn't really want the first draft on there, but I thought there'd be others, but there really wasn't. This pretty much covered it. And I'm not going to play it for you now, but I just want to show you where it is. And this video covers a vision I had of St. Germain and some other things. And on this video, I talk about what a coin I saw on his personage. He was wearing this coin like on a chain on his vest, I guess you could say. And he would just flip this coin, like he's standing there talking to people or whatever, and he's flipping it in his hands. And one side had an image that Thoth told me later was a representation of the Bennu, not the Ben stone, but the Bennu bird itself, I believe. It might have been the stone. I think it was the stone. I'm sorry. Yes, the Bennu stone, or the Ben stone, from which the Bennu bird arises. I didn't recognize it as such because it was highly symbolic, but he told me that's what it represented. And the other side of the coin was an image that I didn't recognize either, but he told me represented the coming together of the 7 rivers of Eden. Well, I wondered why in the world would that be on that coin? You know, either one of those things, but especially this thing about the rivers of Eden. But what he told me at the time was that the 7 rivers of Eden identifies it as the first Garden of Eden, the Metatronic Garden of Eden, not the Orotronic Anuki Garden. And the energy field of the 7 rivers is within the DNA. Now, I don't think I even mentioned that much on this particular video, but that's the case. So anyway, just one moment. Let me. So at this point in our time frame, what we are doing is we are entering a phase on the very lip of the pyramidus radius matrix of being able to be helped by our kindred once again. And some of that help has to do with opening the gate for us to receive the crystalline loci being, crystalline being forms into our blood and thus into our DNA. So this is where it gets really exciting for the present time. The tree of life, the tree of the DNA, which is actually a 3-dimensional holographic field of living light structures. And of course it relates to the Sephiroth of the Kabbalah, as well as many other depictions. And what makes it work is interdimensional. It's not a singular pathway of DNA propagation and duplication. It's far beyond that. And back in the 1970s, this was pre-Thoth. This is from the ultra beings that were working with me, preparing me for Thoth. I received the term paragenetics. And so I'm going to read you a little bit here about that. This is on my, incidentally, this is on my Arc of Metatron 777 site, The Science of Paragenetics. In 1972, my interplane source, not directly Thoth, as I did not consciously connect to him until 1977, enlightened me on the science of paragenetics. Paragenetics is the genetic information which is passed through reincarnation from one embodiment to another. So we have 2 channels to receive genetic information, from our family ancestry and from our past lives. These 2 modalities work together and yet have different jobs. What you inherit from your parents is a 3D mapping of genes, carrying the information of that family consciousness as well as physical traits. Paragenetics is the vehicle for gathering your entire human experience in various genetic families through which you have incarnated. So paragenetics supplies the information you need to bring it all together. Paragenetics affects your here and now gene pool, making changes that will improve that gene pool's ability to receive interdimensional information. It can also allow you to upgrade a whole genetic family through passing on the energy carried through the paragenetic circuitry, which gives a greater perspective to the gene pool, as if to allow them, the genes, to read the whole book instead of just one page, the one page they are on. You can draw upon your paragenetic information to correct damaged genes, to remove genetically inherited diseases, etc. The ancients did this through using light to make this communication possible between the para and the physical genetics, or physical genes. Stimulation of cells via light causes the cells and thus the DNA to open dormant codons, yes, of course, called by Thoth ephemems, which are especially designed to process paragenetic signals. When these two genetic modalities are in full communication, deep genetic healing takes place. Paragenetic communion shares with the physical DNA bilateral systemic function. This means that once the para is in full communication with the physical genome, it begins to create an alternate path of higher evolution, which is quantum in nature. What does this mean? Simply put, well, I'm trying. It means that as a human being, we are no longer trapped on one path of physical evolution. The secondary path is quantum in nature, so it can, you might say, beat tall buildings in a single bound, a quantum leap. As we develop the second path, our primary physical DNA path will begin to merge with it until it dissolves inside the greater quantum evolution. This is where we become pure gem body beings. This is not something we have to do handsprings to achieve. It is a natural part of our evolution as quantum beings. We have been sifting around a while at the bottom of the cup, but now we are being strained into the greater purifying system as it pulls us up and out of the linear tracking to a level where we are able to sustain more and more pulses from our paragenetic field. Of course, paragenetics can also carry stuff we would rather not bring with us from past lives. However, as we become more and more aware of how empowered we are to transform the lower vibrations, we will then be carrying from one life to another just the pure forms we need to bond with the physical for liberation along the quantum path. Often the soul will incarnate into a genetic family that is really not among its soul family in order to transform that genetic strain through the light induction of the paragenetics that soul is bringing into the physical family line. The neat thing is you don't have to bear children to do this. You just have to vibrate your paragenetic being into your current physical genetic body. The fact that various forms of light therapy can stimulate the connection between the para and physical genetics I find especially interesting. Thoth has told me this type of light stimulation not only creates the stronger communication channel, but it eliminates the baggage we don't want. Let me try that again. But it eliminates the baggage we don't want to come through the para waves from the past. Thus, one receives just the pure paragenetic light streaming. So, we're going to continue. We're going to continue with the Emstra molecule, because what makes all of this work, this interdimensional genetics, is the Emstra molecule. Now, every living thing has an Emstra molecule. However, and I'm talking about in the whole universe, and if it is, well, I'm not going to say every living thing, because some almost robotic beings that are partly genetic material do not have it. Let's say most living things in the universes, whatever, have the Emstra molecule, at least in this universe, and many others that are connected to it. Now that we've got that settled, let's go to what it exactly is. And it makes everything work in a holographic field presentation beyond the linear form. However, many beings have such a dried up, shall we say, Imstra molecule that they may as well not have it. It's so far gone. And those are the ones that are trying to get that from us. They've been trying to get it all along before the gold mining or anything else. They wanted the Imstra molecule functional, fully functional. And that's what most of the genetic manipulation is about, has been about, and is trying to get that Imstra molecule functional. Now we have an Imstra molecule that's not in good shape, but it is much better off than theirs is. I don't care their technology and their ability to fly around in spaceships and all this stuff. Their Imstra molecule is basically crap. So ours looks pretty good to them. So this is the key to the whole genetic manipulation stuff, that it was contra to the genetic healing. So here we go. Now, I've read this before, probably on some other videos, but this is so important, and this keys back into the picture that we're creating here with these particular videos in this series, that I'm going to read it again. The Imstra molecule is the divine seed. It is in constant quantum state, so it is not to be found at any one point in the body. It is all places at once and no place specifically. In one state observation, it is an octahedron, yet within the context of the quantum field, it is also hyperwarped. This means that if you could see the energy pattern of it, the Imstra would appear as a sphere that is stretched out on one side like a comet with a tail, but the tail is twisted into a helix. This helix is being twisted two directions at once, creating a flashing dynamic between multiple dimensions. It is not just flashing in and out of two separate dimensions. It is flashing to 0 point and back again, and thus 0 point is the null zone from which all, and this 0 point is the null zone from which all dimensions are accessible. The molecule of the Imstra is a membrane composed of in-state, non-atomic substance. It is the purest of ethereal-based crystal. It is so sensitive to all dimensional fields that it lives constantly in all of them. It is continuously redefining its spatial integrity. Now imagine that this molecule, which as a whole is the essence of what you understand as divine, is as defining the entire system which it occupies. In the context of this topic being the human organism. The question may loom for you is, if the human organism occupies a state of divinity, which is thus by default immortal, then why does it become diseased, decay, and die? The organism is designed to function perfectly and eternally. Disease, decay, and death come from a breakdown in communication between the medium occupying the body and the body itself. The incarnated intelligence in the body, designated by the soul, is not fully attentive to the God channel, as we shall call it. This is due to the fact that the imprint in the DNA, which allows communication between all systems instantly, which we call the inscription of light, was disengaged intentionally by the souls incarnating on earth in its first stages of creation. Their purpose was to establish a new universal continuum using the node upon which earth is placed as the starting point for that process. Now here it says we need not go further into this story, but return to the topic at hand. But we're going to go a little further here, because we're talking about, this really hits to the core, the apple core, I might say, of the whole shebang here. First of all, you'd say, why would they do such a thing? It seemed absolutely insane. But you see, they had plans. Their plans didn't work. Their plans were to create a whole new continuum, and the whole, starting with their what they wanted to do, and here we go. But it didn't work. It did not happen, because they were going against divine law. Divine law is not some immutable thing. Divine law can fluctuate and change and turn and recreate itself in newer and greater dimensions. But divine law has a principle that is immutable. And as long as everything comes out of that principle, you can have a lot of changes in divine law. But when you violate the principle, I'm calling it the principle with a capital P, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work, and you fall into the ortron, so to speak. So when they turned off that genome, they turned off their ability to become eternal in the body, in the disease, decay, aging, and all that. However, this was not turned off overnight. Again, it's a process. They didn't just flip a switch and it was turned off. They were already going down and down and down this rabbit hole. When the Anunnaki came on the scene, they flipped the switch. They said, okay, we don't want any of this remain here. We want our slaves, our beings we're working with, to be able to turn them on and off for certain time periods of longevity, and that's it. And so they finished it. You know, they finished the work of disengagement that we'd already begun. And you see how this works. If we didn't have, I say we as a human race, did not have the karma that allowed them to flip the switch, they couldn't have done it. But we created that karmic field of already disengaging. So they just finished us off in that regard. Okay, to continue. The human body is not receiving the full spectrum program from the God channel. Yet to realign to the full spectrum of this channel is something that can be instantly achieved by redirecting the signal back to the Imstra, sending to the Imstra molecule the light code language it is waiting to receive from the DNA. And no matter the genetic manipulation of the Anunnaki that flipped the switch so we can only live so many years, whatever, that was just the end result. That was just the little last thing. All of that can be reversed, and that can be reversed instantly, according to Thoth. If the right light frequencies enter the body and are able to attach to the quantum field in the Imstra molecule. So Joe Blow, who's, I don't know, 80 years old and on his last legs, if they were to take him with his bad heart and his liver disease and his varicose veins and everything else, and they were to engage the Imstra molecule, say they, higher beings of light or whatever that use this light frequency code on him, he would not only be healthy again, he would be young again. And how quickly the youngness would take effect, maybe not instantly, because the body has to, re-engage its whole system. But yes, it would happen. It would absolutely happen, according to what I'm receiving from Thoth and have been for a long time. And the Imstra molecule is the key to everything. We are the Imstra molecule in that regard. Okay, the Earth presently contains a cap on its frequency. This is placed by the lunar solar magnetic shells of the planet and determined by the evolutionary stage of this solar system. Thus, when a being within the fields of the Earth is able to receive the full spectrum program from the God channel, it is received within the full spectrum of the Earth's allowed frequency capacity. Even with this limitation, one may inhabit a body that can be continually renewed to live for thousands of years in perfect health. Now, I addressed this, I believe, in the last series that I did on the golden tie. I believe somewhere in there, I addressed the fact that, let's see, what was I addressing? Oh, that this cap, I think it wasn't in it wasn't the golden tie, it was in the series before that or something. I've done so many series, I can't remember. But the archonic energy, the archonic, half-light spectrum energy has placed its own cap over the cap. In other words, we have a natural cap, but we also have infiltrations of this archonic wave force. But that can be eliminated. All of this can be eliminated with the frequency shift. There are foods and elixirs, energy capacitors, devices, and techniques which can place one into the M transfer zone. M transfer being the path through which the human being, all aspects of that being, from physical to non-physical, freely transfers DNA information in full spectrum light language to the Imstra molecule. The molecule, in turn, answers and redirects the consciousness of the body intelligence to its path. It is likened to two whales many miles apart, communing by sending signals of vibration to the great body of the ocean currents. Now, that said, it's not like they're sitting out there somewhere on the internet, a machine that can instantly do all this, and you're 80 years old 1 minute and 25 the next. No, it doesn't work that way. But what he's saying is that there are foods, there are elixirs, and there are energy capacitors that can gradually start opening up those fields, gradually bring you back, bring you back, bring you back to a point. We have not developed the technology that would allow us to come back so far that we would be able to live for thousands of years in perfect health, nor have we broken through the cap or eliminated the cap that would allow us to live forever. But those are all potential possibilities. And best case scenario for us right now in 2018 is that we do research and collect energy machines and, sparing no expense, of course, that and elixirs and whatever that start us back on that path. And if we engaged in that stringently and totally for 5 or 6 years, we would find amazing results. But you'd have to get just the right combination, and you'd have to just devote your life to doing that, which means taking kids to the soccer games and all of that's out of the picture, or working for a living, 9 to 5, all of that's out of the picture. So, you say, well, what's the use then? But that is if we use the technology at hand to be able to do that for us. What about using something else? What about accessing it through the help of our ultra being friends and family in a way that's very, very close to being accessible to everyone? Big question, but I believe there's a positive answer to that. So my question in this article is, there's entropy all around us, not just the human body, even in the cosmos. How does this fit in the picture you have presented to us here in those states? All around you, the living creatures, the whole dynamism of the planet you dwell upon, and the cosmos about you, all this you interact with, view, and study from the position of the orotron or half-light spectrum. In the complete Metatron or full light spectrum, it would exist for you quite differently. There would be no entropy. The ants at your feet would glow with immortal beauty. Ooh, that just gives me chills. Okay, deep breath. The question, in the IMSTRA molecule, is the IMSTRA molecule within all living things? It is. However, it varies in type depending on species. That is, there is a different defining register within each species. Question, when the Earth ascends into the new Earth star, in what you are calling the World System 2 operational system, will the cap on planetary frequency be removed? It will. The new Earth star will be, and indeed from the perspective of nonlinear time is, in a metatronic full spectrum state of existence. Question, what is the main difference between scalar energy and what you are calling the Ein Sof ether? So scalar energy is energy. The Ein Sof ether is not. Ether, sorry. The Ein Sof ether is not. So scalar energy is energy. The Ein Sof ether is not. It simply is. It is the intelligent godness. The IMSTRA molecule is what you might call a control panel in matter to communicate it through all matter as a signal, for the Ein Sof ether itself is not a waveform. That gets pretty heavy, or perhaps I should say pretty light, but you can kind of get the picture. Now, from my 1990 writings, IMSTRA, the molecule of light that is being sent through the metatronic spiral, built as a house of light from the miracles of light, to become an etheric molecule in the DNA RNA helix of humanity. This is the molecule of the Christ body within us, being brought into manifestation within our matter body. So the IMSTRA molecule is the molecule of the Christ body. And we wonder about the Shroud of Turin. The geometric for the emstra is the double octahedron, a single octahedron in one dimension, a diamond shape in the image vector for the Aeneid. With the doubling of the octahedron, two octahedrons touching at their apexes, a centrifying axis is created at the juncture, this being the actual seed dynamic of the molecule, the grail of the body's questing for the light communion. It is at the center of the emstra that the consummation of light and matter abides. And of course, we've already stated that it can take varying shapes, but this is the functional shape for what it's speaking about here. It is from the emstra that we will come to build our lighted house through the light molecules' infusion into our blood via the Debrahilarion. Well, it's a whole other topic. Let's just pretend I didn't read that. From this transformation will arise the sapphire blood of angels within the daughters of men. Now here's some schematics created for me per my description by William Buehler. I'm just going to show them for a second because, they're complex, but it just gives different understandings of how this all works. And if you want to study this more, you can always go to this article to do so. Giving the fields and how they orient and what happens, the Tori or the Rochelle grids. Well, anyway, that's all in that. And so this article is on Arc of Metatron 777. This is a portal series, but in the portal, along with the links to where you will find this series, I will put links to some of these things, especially some of these articles here, so you can go through them and read them and understand them a little better. So now we're going to talk about the Lotus Loci, and you'll see how it fits into our story a little bit later, but you need to know just a little bit about this. So the Lotus Loci are creational life forms that are evolving in the New Earth star Numisome and also in the crystalline structure of our current DNA on micro levels. And I would add here also in the blood. You can see them. They're bilocating. So, we're talking about quantum stuff again. So you can see them in the blood, and you can see them in some blood samples from some people. It's getting more and more prevalent. We're going to get to that in a moment. But it's also in the DNA. Now, well, okay, let me read some more and then I'll get back to it. These loci, a function of intent, a focus of intent, are sentient, yet the higher forms contain encoded God commands that ordain high degrees of pure source radiance streaming into the entire New Earth star grid. The Lotus Loci life forms are cosmic nutrients with which to feed our evolving New Earth planet and bodies. As you embrace the images of some of these creations, you will become fed by their light-encoded properties. Each category is within its own special frequency matrix. There are a total of 189 images that I created for this particular project. And in the portal, in the video section, you will find my video on the Lotus Loci, and there's no words to it or anything. I mean, it's just pictures, it's just images. But if you look at it, you're feeding yourself from these light forms. Now, what is happening currently is that these loci are developing further intent, further dimension within our DNA. And as a result, they are showing up in our blood. They were not showing up in our blood maybe 10, 15 years ago, but they are now. And not in everyone's blood, simply because there are various time energy sequencings that are going on in the human spectrum as a whole. So person A may start showing it in the blood before person B does. Doesn't mean person B is less evolved. It just means that there's a way and a system that all of this is coming through into its properties, and it's flowing through the DNA channels. So the paragenetics are also going to have a play on who gets to have the crystal blood first. It's just a matter of its orchestration. So let me see. Let me pause this for a moment. So on my Islands in the Stream site, here we have an article on the Pure Gem Body blood activation. Now, as an example, here I have a slice of William Bueller's blood here, and you see these crystalline forms. Here they are. Now, these are in live blood samples. Now, if you go to a doctor, a regular doctor, most likely he's going to say, oh, well, you have to have dry, dead blood in order to see anything. I mean, live blood's no good, just throw it out. Nope, we can't find anything in there. Well, that's not true. Live blood is really where it's at. Yeah, you need to look at the dried blood too to find certain, amoeba, parasites, whatever. But the live blood is showing you. And even so, the doctor here in Crestone, the naturopath, he's not an MD, but he's more than a naturopath, has a lot of titles connected to him, but he does not wish his name out there on the internet, knows how to look at live blood in the way that you're seeing it here. However, that said, 10, 15 years ago, he was not seeing this in live blood, these crystalline forms. He doesn't know what the heck they are. He's looking at them and going, oh my God. And he's not seeing them in all the live blood samples he does. He may be here in our area, but he has a global clientele. And he's not finding them in everybody's blood. And at first, it was only like in William Bueller's and a few people in his synergy group, because they were working and have been working for years and years and years and years with this synergic system. So no wonder their blood has a lot of crystals in it. Well, now in the last few years, this individual, we'll call him a naturopath, but he's much more than that, is finding these crystals more and more in other people's blood all over the world. But not in everybody's yet. It's still in the majority. I'm sorry, minority. Still in the minority, but it's increasing. And the types of crystals are the look of them are increasing. This was from, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago that they started showing up in Bill's blood, and then a few others of his synergy people. So let me read this. Since the mid-1970s, Thoth has been giving me the information on the Pure Gem Body. As those of you who have kept up with my written channelings know, it is mentioned frequently being the progressing human condition of the newer star reality. Now some actual physical gleanings are surfacing, which is quite exciting to me. I stopped short from using the word proof, as that is a shady territory in the scope of multidimensional realities. In order to relay the full impact of this gleaning, I will regress a moment to give you some history. Now this is talking about Bill and how he became involved with his synergy that he was doing before he ever met me, and how my work connected to his, and so on. So I'm just going to kind of skip that. So let me see what I want to read to you here. Just a moment. I'm trying to figure out what this quote is from. We have a VH. This is Bill writing this here. Okay. So this is Bill's statement. Where before there were hundreds of the blue stars with 3 large supporting agencies, there are thousands. Now there are thousands with some very strange shapes doing strange things. The color has shifted to a red-white star in most cases. We found an area of static but living Imstra stars with a few couplets where 2 were touching. I'm not sure they were actual Imstra stars, but they might have been generated. Well, they obviously are being generated from that frequency. So these are those comments on it. The blood energy effects you are seeing are not able to make the circuit leap into the waveform of the biosystem until one until other changes occur in the human experience of the soul incarnate. The energy cells will pool and begin to feed on themselves, keeping their level of replication at a certain volume until that connection is made and the leap can take place. Such a leap does not come from physical, but from the spiritual, to which the physical then responds, inducing the blood energy to leap into the waveform. As more and more human beings create the gem blood, so they are also building, communicating at the level of the blood chemistry. This communication increases the spiritual unity of those within the gem blood and thus aids in the individual spiritualization of the individual soul-body system. Now, so here, this next part is addressing a full-blown pure gem system. The pure gem Imstrom will be fully active in the system and have multi-faceted crystalline ports which allow and draw to it docking for a full range of full-blown gem crystal microchips. This is at the core of the multidimensionality capabilities of the true pure gem body within its new Earth star environment. Now, in referring to a specific formation seen in Bill's blood of the blue particles, Thoth says, this formation is the tracking phase, where each energy spark that in a full-blown pure gem body would be a microchip, is being attracted to and creating, I'm really reading this poorly. I'm sorry, let me try it again. The tracking phase, where each energy spark that in a full-blown pure gem body would be a microchip, is being attracted to and receiving information from the knowledge-based cell. However, in the current physical environment, all these functions are operating at phantom level until the charge is given from the waveform of the body and its whole Earth system to make the leap and bond. In other words, Bill is still Bill while this is going on in his body. He's not getting healthier. He's not getting younger. However, if this leap was made, he would be getting healthier and he would be getting younger very fast. More from Thoth on the topic. What is occurring with the manifestation of the blue stars in the blood? What are they and what are they doing? The blue stars indicate that you, William, are in the first stages of transforming the blood into pure gem frequency. You are acting as a host for the planet, one of the surrogates for blue blood transfusion into the human spectrum. Now remember, when we're talking about paragenetics, we don't have to go out and pollinate any flowers. We just have to shine our light. And when we're shining this light, it's coming from this blue blood infusion, it's entering other hosts that are vibrating at the proper frequency to receive it. Other human beings, animals, plants, whatever. I guess in this instance, human beings, although animals and plants key off of that. When and how did they manifest? Gradually through the work with the new art dynamics, which is what Bill and his group are doing, for the purposes stated above. What are the larger, brighter blue light forms? Host beings who organize and distribute the new gem blood cells. How does this phenomenon affect the angelica work? Well, this is a particular process that Bill is doing, and he goes on to talk about that. So we'll just skip some of that. Let's see. Would they be Imstra molecules forming cells? Yes. Is this a form of sapphire blood? Yes. Are others on the planet doing the same? Yes. But at this time, not many. Not just within your group, but not many on the planet. Although this was written like nearly 10 years ago. Remember that. So a lot more is happening since then. Will the blue star phenomena now fade away? It will show at peak times. It will show at peak times throughout the remainder of your lifetime unless you were to completely and willfully separate yourself from your current soul path. Okay, and that was then. Okay, let me read this last part here. So according to Thoth Hara, we are now in a stage of actual physical transformation evidenced by the star blood. Now, what is not said in this, but it will be said later, is that these are loci. These are lotus loci in the blood, these crystalline things that we're seeing. making itself known in the blood a growing number, I would say, of people on the earth. None of us are yet ready to leap over tall buildings at a single bound, for as though stressed as physical as it appears, these blue particles are still in their phantom phase until they are able to connect with the complete waveform of human existence, utilizing the bridging process of the Antakarana. But that is coming, folks, maybe sooner than we might expect. So that was the first article. There's more, so let's continue here. So this was written sometime last year. And you can see, now this is my blood here. So I come to Crestone and I get my blood done. And this is many years, this is about 10 years later, 9 years later. And here we have a little creature. It looks like sort of like a jellyfish. And Thoth says that the jellyfish and the plant kingdom combined are what we were originally in our formation state in the Lotus reality. We weren't jellyfish and plants, but we come out of that streaming. So plants look sort of like we used to, and jellyfish look sort of like we used to, because they came out of that streaming into the animal and mineral, the animal kingdom, or the flora animal kingdom. I think I've got that right finally. Okay, so anyway, this is my blood. And here we have some more. Look at these things. This is really quite incredible. So it's become far more diverse and more prevalent in the blood. And more people's blood are receiving this. So here we go. Now living once again in Crestone, I recently went to this naturopathic physician myself. 7 years had passed since Thoth elaborated the crystal particles being in Bill's blood, showed them. Okay, 7 years, now 8. As Thoth prophesied, the naturopath is now finding it in more and more people. Here are some screenshots of my little crystal beings, in other words, Lotus Loci, manifesting in these particular forms. They don't look exactly as they do in the pictures I showed, because that's the whole newer spectrum. From last week's blood sample. So here are the images. My question to Thoth now in April of 2017. Oh, wow. I really got ahead of myself there, didn't I? 2017. I'll have to make that correction. Is, you have told us that this is the beginning of the formation of our pure gem blood, which will become full-blown when we enter the vibration of the new Earth star. But what are we really looking at in these live blood sides? Are those shiny, moving, living things? So they are interdimensional loci, going about their task of transforming the blood into a full light crystal energy through the activation of the intramolecule. Of course, this fullness will not be complete in this lifetime of those now in embodiment, but they will carry the charge paragenetically into their future incarnations as the whole quantum of viability builds to the point of becoming a true pure gem body. When you look at these light cells, you are seeing into the future, as they are not from this time dimension. So here are some even more recent pictures in my blood. Now I've got purple spheres. New things show up. Bill has these long, elongated rectangle crystals with edges to them, like little, little buildings of crystal. And I have these purple spheres. And you can see them here. And here's, look at this. Look at here. See, I have an elongated cube too. Here's an elongated cube in there. And then here's something that both Bill and I had time before last time. These were one time, and this was before, like little snowflakes. And it's interesting because Bill and I turn up with the same new stuff. Not always, but mostly we do. So you can see things are happening here. The tree of life is a crystalline being in the universe, and it is producing in us the pathway home. Now this video is already in the portal and has been, well, for about actually it's probably nearly been 3 years now. So I'm not going to play it here, but I just want to inform you that it is here. This is on the tree of Osiris. And this is really not approaching it from the perspective of the DNA, but from the perspective of the nebula itself. Because the cosmic tree is the nebula, and not just the Osirian Nebula, that's its face, shall we say, but the whole starry heavens that we see are part of this DNA tree. It's more than DNA, but it's the true tree of life. And out of that comes the DNA in our bodies and the whole receptacle and the way it works, the IMSTRA molecule, all of that. So I would suggest that if you want to, refresh yourself on the tree of Osiris, that's part of the bigger picture of the whole thing. And if you go to the Kyi'Ra portal videos, the big selection of all of them, you can type into search Tree of Life, Tree of Osiris, and it's going to come up here. As I was just getting ready to do this Tree of Life version, up pops in my mail on this site, the Ancient Pages. Tree is deeply rooted in beliefs and cultural traditions of ancient people around the world. So it's interesting that it popped right up in my face as I was about to do this. But it just goes into all the different trees, the Yggdrasil, the Siliba tree, sacred tree of life of the Maya people, the cedar, sacred tree with medicine power, Native American beliefs, the Kalpa tree, sacred wishing tree, has been object of adornment and worship since ancient times, and it just gives a picture of all these different tree concepts, but it's all one and the same. It is our tree of life, not just the DNA helix, but the whole holistic, interdimensional, cosmic tree. And so, for now at least, this concludes my Two Gardens and the Tree of Life series. I hope that it has helped you kind of put all the pieces together in regard to the version that Thoth presents in his Akasha. For those of you who feel inclined to resonate with that picture. So once again, thank you for listening.